It's the longest non-stop canoe race on Earth. 71 portages, 86,000 paddle strokes, and 24 grueling hours. Starting in Devizes in Wiltshire, travelling the length of the Kennet and Avon Canal until Reading, where they joined the River Thames through to the finishing line at Westminster Bridge in London. For two teams, it pushed them to the limit of their endurance, and then beyond. This is their story.
Hi, it's Roger Hatfield. I'm doing the DW 2012. It's the 7th of April. In about 23 hours, we'll be at Westminster.
It's a damp Easter bank holiday weekend morning as the crews assemble and get themselves ready. It's the culmination of months of preparation and planning. As anticipation mounts, the competitors busily ready their kayaks and prepare both physically and mentally for the forthcoming challenge.
I'm Steve McPhee. I'm kayaking with Kevin Hipkins. This is my first DW experience. It says on here.
I've got spoons here, don't worry, I'll sort it out.
Yeah.
Okay, the spoon is 25 grams.
It's 40 and 40. 40-40. For me, it was a rather big test to, I guess, start training for an event of this size and nature, and to go 24 hours and to handle the nutrition, to do the preparation, the teamwork, the camaraderie that goes along with it, the training to get in sync with your partner. It's a new sport for me. I picked it up 3 years ago. So there was a lot of uniqueness to this individual sport.
Kevin Hipkins, and today we're paddling from Devizes in Wiltshire down to Westminster, 125 miles away.
Considering that we started originally going from our friend's place to Marlow Weir, which was basically a kilometer, and I had to stop 4 times to even get half a kilometer. The thought of doing 125 miles really was just kind of staggering.
Wait, every mile of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't get through 125 miles without having people there who want to do 2 things. They want to see you finish, and so they're supporting you both from a psychological perspective, trying to keep your energy up, and then they're giving you food at the right time, and they're staying up as well. So they're traveling for 125 miles in a car for 24 hours. And I'd love to hear their story in the cars, some of the things they say, especially the part where they say, "Oh, geez, these guys aren't going to make it."
There you go, Kevin.
As Steve McPhee and Kevin Hipkins set off, there's a sense of release, a kind of freedom that being on the water brings. It's also the start of a battle with themselves. For Roger Hatfield, this year's race is his second, and he knows what's in front of him.
I remember the first paddle that we did, we nearly fell in. The second paddle we did, we nearly fell in. And I think the third paddle we did, we actually came third in a race.
Olympic rowing legend Sir Steve Redgrave joins his friend for this unique event.
Steve Redgrave used to go backwards and now try and going forwards at a very silly sport of canoeing, 125 miles, Devizes to Westminster. Always heard about the race, but thought I'd never do it. And when Roger did it last year, made it just over halfway and got heat stroke and stopped, I texted him and said, "Oh, I'll do it with you next year," because we were playing a lot of racquetball with each other at that time. And expecting for him to tell me where to go, he texted me back immediately. It had hardly been sent. He said, "Yeah, okay, we'll do it." So I've been paddling for the last 5 months, quite enjoying the training, but not looking forward to the next 24 hours.
Roger's been trying to get me kayaking for a while now, and coming down to the gym and doing some weights, and all those years have gone. And so I thought, yeah, why not? And went out on the river a couple of times and really enjoyed it. From all those years and years of being on the river, paddling coming down. But if I go out in a rowing boat now, it's only going one way. It's only going to go slower and slower and slower. So I actually enjoyed being out in the single and going out in the double with the guys, especially Roger, having a nice little paddle, especially in the early mornings of coming back. And it was just a joy to be out on the water again. And actually, each time going out, getting a little bit better than I was the time before. So the joy of the water as I used to have, but doing something that I'm improving, not getting worse at.
With 5 Olympic gold medals to his name, he is a natural sportsman. But this type of endurance race creates a whole new set of challenges. Roger and Steve confidently set off on what would turn out to be a test of endurance like no other. Roger battling the demons of last year's failure, and Steve with the added pressure of maintaining insulin and sugar levels due to his diabetes. The Devizes to Westminster race is a physical challenge in a class of its own. All crews compete against each other and the clock, and themselves.
Steve and I had been paddling in a Cobra that we'd bought, which was a club specification Cobra, so quite heavy. It's quite small in the back for Steve, being his 6'5" that he is. So we bought ourselves a new boat. We were promised delivery of this new boat probably 3-4 weeks before the DW. In fact, it arrived, I believe, 2 weeks before the DW. And we were anxious to get in this boat because it was a lot lighter. We felt we'd go a lot faster in it. And we'd done all our training in the old boat. So we were really looking forward to it. We got the new boat, and it was a nightmare. It was so light for us. We were starting from scratch again. It took us probably about 5 outings until we were really confident paddling it. And in retrospect, I think we probably had good enough speed in the old boat rather than the new boat to actually do the DW.
Get in here. Gotcha. Is it? Well, you can't, can you? No. Okay, gotcha.
Throughout the journey, competitors receive support, not only from their crew, but huge support from members of the public lining the route.
Good effort, guys. Well done. Good luck to you. Thank you. We nearly there, yeah?
With support crews waiting eagerly to refuel and rehydrate at each designated stop and portage.
Anything you particularly want? Will you take anything more else? The same then, okay? Change to flavour?
Coming up.
Rog, change to flavour?
I'm fine, mate, whatever's got in.
Okay. Same, Steve?
Is that good? What do you fancy next time?
You can do my face.
Ready
same flavour?
Is that one? I've drunk all that.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting one. A week before Roger and Kevin did it, the year before, I got a phone call saying, "Are those sports gels really good used as energy?" And I thought, you've got 5 days before you start. What are you doing? You've got to have all this sorted out. So we did spend quite a lot of time of getting hydration drinks, what sort of food we were going to eat, trying to do longish paddles every now and again with the food and the stuff that we're eating, so we were going to be prepared for that. But didn't really change diet a huge amount. when I was rowing, it was very much high carbohydrate, which is very sort of long giving energy. So similar sort of things, but when you're doing something as 24 hours worth, is that you've got to be eating well, and you've got to be restoring up the energy that you're burning off. But it's not as intensive, so you can sort of drip feed it in some ways, but it's really important you get it in. The hydration's the biggest part of it, not really the food side of it.
I'm Rem, and I've been looking after and working with Steve with his diabetes now for the last 3 years at least, just to make sure that his blood sugars are in control and how he's working with his whole pump system and sensor. So for this race, what was important, because Steve has never done an endurance race for 24 hours. Usually he's done short stints, and we've been able to manage his diabetes through those short stints. So this is actually quite, one, it's a challenge for Steve, but also for his diabetes and being able to manage it so he doesn't drop too low or too high, both of which would disrupt his diabetes. So as we're going through the race, as well as making sure he's taking his electrolytic drinks and making sure that what he's taking in, his carbohydrates, are right, but also taking his blood sugars throughout the race as well to make sure that he's in check.
Meanwhile, Kevin Hipkins and Steve McPhee are making strong progress, with only a brief stop for a change of clothes before rejoining the canal, leading them to the start of the Thames stretch.
Steve and Roger put together one heck of a training program. I remember Roger had sent across an email at one point early on, I think it was December, and it came across with the number of miles that we were expecting to train for each one of the months, and it kind of ramped up from 200 miles in December to 300 miles in January to 350 miles in February. And when I initially read the email, I thought maybe he got a formula wrong in his Excel spreadsheet. And as we went off and began to do the training and followed the pattern and really got into a rhythm of it, it was good, but it was very motivating for me. I tend to work that way anyway, of setting small goals and knocking them off one by one.
Feeling good. Kind of good.
Chris.
So for the first 15, 16 miles, we were really just getting into the rhythm. Except getting attacked by the swan. That was probably the low point of our first 16 miles. But after that, we had done the canal so many times that it just got to be kind of old hat. We knew where we were going. We knew the portages. We started to pass some of the crews, and so our confidence starting to build. And by the time we got to Reading, it wasn't necessarily a question of whether or not we thought we could finish. We knew we'd be able to finish by Reading. We just knew that it was going to hurt a whole lot more than what we thought it was going to hurt.
They're looking good, actually. I mean, some of the crews are looking pretty cold, to put it mildly. Yeah, I think they're looking pretty strong. They're looking pretty comfortable. They've got a nice rhythm. Let's get on the water before then. Come on, guys, let's get up. Let's go.
With the light fading and the long Thames stretch before them, the crews push forward into the night and the arduous task of reaching Westminster. Battling more than just fatigue, their mental challenge becomes their greatest challenge throughout the cold and dark night hours.
4 or 5 weeks before, we did a very long paddle. We did all the canal system, and that was about 10 hours worth of paddling. We learnt a lot from that, but that was through all the day. And we'd done a few night paddles, but not going into night paddles as fatigued as you were from a day's paddle. We got onto the river slightly ahead of schedule, only probably about 5 or 10 minutes ahead of schedule, so that went all to plan. Down the Reading stretch was really very enjoyable, just as it was getting dusk and dark, and then you feel really quite isolated as the darkness cuts in. And Roger, from probably Sonning, started to struggle a little bit. We had to take an extended break at one of the points, and then we got back into the boat and started sort of making our way. We'd lost a little bit of time at that stage.
I thought something was wrong as we got on the Clifton Reach. The boat really wasn't moving as it had moved before. We were both tired. It was something like 1 o'clock in the morning. We'd started losing time on our projected finish time, but 10 or 12 minutes, that didn't matter either way. As we came into Bolters, we nearly fell in again, and to me that was very strange. The boat hadn't been that unstable, but once again it was about 1:15 in the morning. We paddled the Bray stretch through from Maidenhead. We got to Bray Lock, and one of the marshals came up to us, asked us how it was going, and Steve said, well, I think we're just about done.
Going past your house is always the hardest thing to do, and home's not too far away from there. Going past Marlow Rowing Club, where both Roger and I used to row, or started our rowing, and the water was just dead flat, wasn't a ripple on the water. And there was an Irish double who were really hugging the bank. There wasn't that much stream, but you want to be out in the middle. So we're out in the middle thinking, they've gone past us. They went past us about an hour ago, but they'd stopped, had a kit change, had some food, and we'd gone past them. So they're going past us for the second time. And we just caught their wash, and we had a big wobble, and we almost fell in. And we had sort of stopped and sort of had a little bit of a giggle about it. And then we set off again, and then we had another sort of big wobble with the boat. And I pulled a muscle just right under my rib cage, and really quite sore, but wasn't quite sure what I'd done at that point, but carried on paddling, knowing that Roger had sort of been struggling for the last sort of 3/4 hour. Got to Marlow Lock, support crew there, a lot of family had come down to see us going past, which was really quite nice. But the pain in my stomach and sort of rib cage was quite painful, and I thought, oh, Roger's not feeling good. He's probably going to stop. And I thought, I'm not so happy. I'm not so sad about that. And then he turned around and said, right, I'm ready. Let's go. And I thought, oh, okay. So I got back into the boat and we set off, and we had to stop at the ferry at the bottom of the Cookham stretch. Before then going into the lock, and then we had another one at Bolters Lock, and they were getting longer and longer breaks just to try and get some recovery. And then when we got to the Maidenhead stretch and over the Bray Lock, is that I was getting more and slumped in the boat, and I just had no rotation, which is no good within canoeing at all. And we stopped about 6 times from there around to Andrews Boatyard, which is the bottom of the 2012 Olympic rowing and kayaking course, and that we were going to have a little extended break there, and we got out of the boat and we knew that we weren't going to carry on. We were falling behind schedule. We weren't going to make the locks and the tides to Teddington, and so sadly we called it a day. Very frustrated, very annoyed, but probably the right decision to make, but it was a hard one to make.
With Roger Hatfield and Steve Redgrave retiring in the early hours of the morning, Kevin Hipkins and Steve McPhee battle on. Arriving at Teddington Lock at 6:30 a.m, the support crew are waiting, as by now they are heavily fatigued. Setting off again in an almost zombie-like state, they have the wide final stretch at the Thames leading them to Westminster.
as you get further on the tidal part of the Thames, it gets to be really swirly, and you can see these swirls at the eddies after the bridges. And so we did have one small capsize. I'm gonna blame that on my partner. I wish we could have been a little bit more stable than that. But obviously we just zigged when we should have zagged, unfortunately. And so we fell in, so we didn't have a lot of confidence probably for the last 15 miles, which meant that we really couldn't stay in the center of the river, because we did figure if we fell out in the center, we've got a lot farther distance to swim than if we fell in over at the riverbank. So we tried to stay as close to the riverbank as possible. We did pick it up a little bit, but still there was that fear that we'd fall in, because if you fall in and a boat picks you up, then that doesn't count as crossing the finish line.
There were so many little moments that kind of crept up on me to the feeling of elation that actually overtook me as we actually crossed under the bridge and said, you know, we started off on a journey and we've completed it.
Everybody in that race wants to see everybody else finish. And when you go by the boats and you say to them, keep it going, you can do it. And when you see the support crew on the side of the river and it's not your support crew and they're saying, keep it going guys, you can do it, you really see that it's a race just not only for the individual who is participating, the team, but it's a race for everybody who's participating. The support that you get from everybody is simply phenomenal. So I'd give it a try. Hey, what the heck, what else do you get to do on an Easter weekend besides eat chocolate?
As the competitors cross the finishing line, there is a sense of achievement, bewilderment, and fatigue, but most of all, elation at completing the Devizes to Westminster race. Kevin Hipkins and Steve McPhee finally finish in 24 hours, 39 minutes, cheered on by fellow Longridge paddlers, family and friends, and their dedicated support crew.
Well done, Kevin. Well done, Steve.
Here we are. What was your time?
24.
Done. What's that?
20:44, 46. Brilliant, thank you.
How's Steve doing?
Hey, Caitlin, Kira, Daddy got you the medal. Oh, thanks, Jess, for letting me do that. I appreciate it. That's awesome. Thanks, man.